right, so now we're on to our next focus on social strength. And this is a big one. This is dealing with challenging people, maybe challenging coworkers or people, maybe a neighbor that's difficult. How do we manage a situation that's socially difficult? And so you'll see this image on your screen, and this is a very common cycle. So a person might judge you, criticize you, or attack you in some way. And then you start to doubt yourself and you feel hurt. And so you start resenting that other person, and then you confront them. And then this makes that person feel bad. And so they start judging and attacking you again. And this could lead to a kind of destructive cycle that repeats itself. And think back in your past of like how you've managed a difficult person. And has there been times when you have done the same strategy over and over again with that person, maybe had the same argument, they had the same argument with you, and just kept repeating that, and it didn't work? So what we're going to look at now is ways to break out of those kind of repetitive cycles and manage a challenging situation more effectively. So the key to managing a challenging situation is first to recognize what your typical strategy has been. And you can see we're showing a slide here of the 4 possible things you can do. So this is fantastic because we've reduced it down to there's 4 social strategies you can use to manage a difficult situation. You can ignore or escape the situation. So that's like where you're just avoiding it entirely. You can stand up for yourself. That's where you're asserting yourself, but you're not trying to necessarily be really pleasant or nice. You can be just supportive, or you can stand up for yourself and be supportive. So just to give you an example, when I was a young person, my dominant strategy was probably in the bottom left of this image, which is being supportive or being nice. So people would start to tease me and I would always go to laughing along with it and being nice. And this just led to a repetition of the same exact behavior. So sometimes playing nice doesn't work. Sometimes it does work. So just take a look at these 4 strategies. I want you to think about a difficult person or a difficult situation you're dealing with. Think about what your dominant strategy is, and just maybe pause here for a sec and have a think about what it is. Okay, so now that you've had a chance to think about the strategy, the key to managing this situation is this. There is no one strategy that always works for you. If I could just say, well, you need to just to be assertive but also compliment them and that'll work every time. Well, that doesn't work every time. So this is the difficulty. What works for you in a particular situation at a particular time is going to differ. So this means you have to get into your discoverer. This means that you've got to actually make a guess about what might work and then use trial and error to find out what happens. So with these 4 strategies, our first step in discoverer zone is just to actually, no matter how ridiculous it sounds to you, I want you to generate strategies in each of these 4 quadrants. So what would it look like with this difficult person if you ignored or escaped a situation? And then what would it look like if you stood up for yourself? In other words, you're not trying to be pleasant, you're just asserting yourself. So example would be, just say, look, I really didn't like you giving me this work this late when the deadline's tomorrow. So that would be an example of that top right quadrant where you're standing up for yourself, you're asserting your needs, but you're not trying to play nice. The bottom left quadrant would be something like, let's say somebody gave you the work too late for you to do much about it. The bottom left would be saying, look, okay, I'll do my best, that's all right, I'll try and help out here. So that's just a pure positive response, that's an example. So generate some examples of that, playing nice. And the final quadrant, the one on the bottom right, is about mixing your assertiveness with that being nice and supportive. So if somebody gave me the work and it was really late in the day, I'd say, look, I'm happy to help you with this. I want to support you here, but next time, can you make sure not to give me the work this late because this really puts a lot of pressure on me. And of course, if you're in the first quadrant, ignoring it would be just take the work and just do it. So it may sound like one is the better response, but it's important in this first discovery step just for you to generate tons of alternatives, no matter how absurd they sound. So just go ahead and do that now. Generate responses in each of the 4 quadrants. Okay, now that you have looked at all the possible options, and you know what you typically do, your next question is, do you want to do something different and new? Is there a chance that you can have a better kind of response to the situation? If so, look through all the things that you've generated and pick one that you're willing to do, knowing that when you leave your comfort zone as a discoverer, it's going to be uncomfortable. So for me, I had to leave my comfort zone and stop being super agreeable. I had to sit there when the person was kind of making fun of me and not laugh along, not ignore it, just sit there and look at them and let them feel the distress. And I felt the distress too, but I was willing to do that. And it actually shifted the social dynamics in a positive way. So look through the strategies you've generated, choose one that you think might work, and then give it a try. And I'm not saying it's going to work, but the next thing as a discoverer is to pay attention. What happens in that situation? Does your situation improve? If so, keep doing that. If not, you may have to go back through your list and try something new. And so I want to close with one really important takeaway, and that is that when it comes to managing difficult social situations, what feels good is not always what's best. When somebody does something and it's legitimately they're doing something wrong towards you, you want to confront them. That's what would feel good a lot of times. But sometimes that just makes things worse and blows things up. I mean, for example, let's say you are right and you confront them and they admit it. And now you've embarrassed or shamed them. Okay, so maybe you win that battle, but now the person feels embarrassed and shamed to be around you. And people, I found in my life, rarely forgive you for making them feel embarrassed or shamed. So if there's a way that you can kind of effectively manage the social situation, even if it doesn't feel good in the moment, you want to go for that. You want to be effective. You want to be going for effectiveness rather than just feeling good in the immediate moment.